title of my talk is Radical Ideas in Libertarianism, Privatizing What Moves, Privatizing What Doesn't Move, Roads to the River, to Parks, Hospitals, and Schools. And I'm adding national defense because that question was raised yesterday and I didn't think it was dealt sufficiently. But before I get to that, I want to just mention this thing about transitivity. Our friend Pierre said that transitivity, I don't know if you caught this or not, but he had an aside, and for an Austrian economist, this is just a horrible thing to say. And he said it, so I have to correct the record. What he said is that transitivity is sort of rationality. And what is transitivity? It means that if you prefer apples to bananas, and you prefer bananas to carrots, then you also prefer apples to carrots. That's what's transitivity. And for the neoclassicals who believe in indifference curves and mathematical economics, this is true. But it's false from the Austrian point of view, because when you choose between A and B and you prefer apples to bananas, it's at time 1. And then when you choose bananas over carrots, that's time 2. And when you choose apples over carrots, or apples versus carrots, it's at time 3, and you could have changed your mind. Whereas for the neoclassicals, you can't change your mind, which seems to me to be a little irrational. So, very minor point. Okay, now for national defense. The way our friends, the neoclassicals, who look at it, is it's dependent upon two things, excludability and rivalrousness. What's excludability and what's rivalrousness is the first question. Well, what excludability is can you exclude non-payers from the benefits of the activity that you're performing? And if you can't, the argument is, then you can't have it under private enterprise, because if you can't exclude a non-payer and everyone can avail themselves of the product that you're selling, you can't sell it, and if you can't sell it, you can't have it done privately, because private people need to sell their products so as to defray their costs and maybe make a profit. But if you can't exclude non-payers, you can't have it in the private sector, so it has to be in the government sector. That's the argument. So, for example, can you exclude non-payers who eat pizza? Yes. Yes. You can exclude them because you have a very credible threat that if you grab the pizza and run and don't pay for it, we'll call the cops. And the cops are going to say, hey, Charlie, you better pay for the pizza, otherwise we're going to kick your butt. Do you have to exclude everyone? 100%? No. There's pizza theft. As long as you can exclude most people, most non-payers of the pizza, you can run a pizza parlor. What about a crowded city street? Well, here the argument is you can't exclude them. What are you going to do? Think of New York City, Broadway, and 42nd Street. And there are thousands of people there. And what are you going to do? Go over to each one and say, hey, did you pay? Did you pay? I mean, you can hardly move. It's like sardines there. So they say you can't exclude non-payers. Therefore, city streets, especially when they're crowded, cannot be in the private sector. They have to be provided by government out of tax revenue. So we now know what excludability is. What is rivalrousness? Rivalrousness is, if I have it, can you also have it? If we can both have it, then it's silly to exclude anyone. So, for example, pizza is, yes, rivalrous, because if I'm eating it, you can't eat it, and if you're eating it, I can't eat it. This tie is rivalrous. If I'm wearing it, you can't wear it. But television is not rivalrous, because if the people in this half of the room are watching my TV program, and now you people in the other half of the room tune in, do you ruin the TV picture of the first guys? No. So it's not rivalrousness. It's not rivalrous. So even if we can exclude, and we can exclude TV, even if we can, we shouldn't. Is it silly? Because it costs nothing to allow more people to use the TV. How can we exclude TV? We broadcast our TV waves, and then we interfere with them, and then we sell you or rent you a box that uninterferes with the interference, namely pay TV. So you can watch it, and we can exclude, but we shouldn't exclude, according to the neoclassical friends. So this is called a private good, These are called public goods. And this one is called a pure public good, because not only can you not exclude, it's not rivalrous. For example, defense. Can you exclude? No. If I'm protecting Tunya, I have to protect Katrina, sorry. I have to protect Katrina too. Katrina is a free rider. Now, Tunya paid for my services, so she and I are okay, and I'm running a defense service, and she's paid, and I'm defending her. But Katrina, the dirty, rotten kid, refuses to pay, and she is a free rider, and she's benefiting. And now Tunya says, well, you know, if you're protecting Katrina too, why should I pay? And nobody's going to pay, and then how can I do this on a private sector benefit? Similarly with the lighthouse. I now have a lighthouse. Here is the situation. Here is the shore, and there's the rocks, and I put the lighthouse right here, so all the ships out here won't crash onto the shore. And some of them paid. A and B paid, whereas C and D didn't pay. What am I going to do? Shut the lighthouse out? No, because my clients, A and B, need the lighthouse, and these guys are free riders. And then A and B start saying, well, you know, if C and D aren't paying, why should we pay? And then we can't have the lighthouse for profit. Okay, I've now given what I think is a fair rendition of what the neoclassicals say. My hope is that if Pierre were here, a neoclassical would say, yeah, 85% right, or 95% right. Namely, I'm trying to be repertorial here. I'm not trying to diminish it or criticize it. I'll do that in a second. But I'm trying to portray it as accurately as I can. What's now the criticism of it? The criticism of it is that just because the government can't exclude doesn't mean that private people can't exclude. Just because government can't exclude doesn't mean private people can't. For example, take the crowded street. The crowded street. We don't have to go to them individually and say, hey, did you pay, did you pay? What we do, look at what we did in this room. We have these little tags. Petru, Saul, Colin, they each have a little tag. And if you're not wearing the tag, and well, we're a small enough group so that we know who's the outsider, but if you weren't wearing a tag, we would arrest you. And we would severely penalize you for being on that city street if you didn't have that tag. So we can exclude, even though there are crowds. Can we exclude in the lighthouse? Yeah, we can exclude. We have a credible threat against these bad guys here who don't want to pay. We can say, one of these days, we're going to get you, boy. The clouds will be in a certain way, and this is before the advent of modern technology. They had sailing ships, and the lighthouse guys are expert in figuring out which ship is which ship. And they say, one of these days, when it's not too cloudy, and none of our clients are there, only you non-payers are there, we're going to shut it off. And now you're at serious risk of crashing on the shore. And all the sailors that you hire, you're going to have to pay them more money than otherwise because they know that this risk is a credible risk. Well, then we can exclude. Can we exclude perfectly? No. But there's always theft of services. It doesn't stop private enterprise. Now take your question about national defense. Can we exclude? Yes. I can say, well, Tunya is wearing a tag and Katrina's not. So everybody else knows that if you mess with Tunya, I'm going to kick your butt. But if you mess with Katrina, hey, I'm not going to do squat. Indeed, I might encourage you to do it. Or at least I won't discourage you to do it.
That's for police. That's still not national defense.
That's police. Now let's talk about national defense. It's a very similar thing. Police are stopping local bad guys. National defense is stopping foreign bad guys. But what they have in common is bad guy-ness. Well, suppose the example I use in the U.S. is in Texas, where men are men and cows are scared. No, men are men. Let's say 95% of the people subscribe to a defense service. So we tell the Russians or the Nazis or whoever the bad guy is, Saddam Hussein, you mess with Texas and we come and we'll get you. But in Massachusetts, they're all a bunch of wimps and wusses and lefties and pacifists and pinkos and wusses and all. and only 5% of them subscribe. Well, we tell the Russians or the bad guys, don't nuke them, because if you nuke them, the waves will get, the clouds will get to Texas. But anything else you do, fair game. Well, if the people in Massachusetts realize this, they're going to shape up and change the error of their ways. So you can exclude perfectly? No, you can't exclude perfectly, but you can exclude. Yeah?
But can I use the example of a nuclear bomb?
Yeah?
It gets the whole city. How do you...
Well, the whole city, I'm talking about the whole state of Massachusetts. It gets the whole state of Massachusetts. Well,
so it's pretty hard to exclude.
Look, if we tell the people in Massachusetts or in Boston that if the Russians nuke you, well, you see, nuking is not good because nuking would also get Texas because of the reverberations. But let's say non-nuclear power, but still World War II stuff. We say to the people in Massachusetts, we're not going to protect you if you don't subscribe. And now they're going to have an incentive to subscribe. Will it be perfect? No. But nothing is perfect, but we can do it. And we have done it. Take the following cases. On the one hand, you have Disney World, Six Flags, and Walmart. And on the other hand, you have, Central Park in New York, Audubon Park in New Orleans, and the city streets. Where are you safer? You're much safer in Walmart or Disney World. If you go to Disney World and somebody's acting obstreperously, they're surrounded by a duck and a geese and a mouse, and they're all packing heat, and they say, step over here, sir, and they've got cameras. Because if a problem occurs in Disney World, they lose money. Whereas what happens in Audubon Park or Central Park or the city streets, and if a rape or a murder occurs? Who loses money? Who's in a position to stop it? The mayor? No. The city park commissioner? No. So it's not perfect. I'm sure there are problems in shopping malls, but very rare. Because if the shopping mall gets the reputation, in North End we have this shopping mall, what is it? Tilford.
Park in Tilford.
We have various shopping malls all over the city. If a murder or a rape occurs in one of them, people just won't go as much. They'll be afraid. So they're very, very careful. Whereas if it occurs in a city street or in a city park, which is protected by public police, we're much less safe. Again, it's not a matter of perfect or not perfect. Okay, I think I've done... I'll call for questions afterward, but I just wanted to get a few here because I did this in your honor because you asked the question yesterday and you didn't get what I thought was a good answer. I think this is a better answer. A perfect answer? No, but a better answer. Okay, now I want to do roads. Before I do roads, let me just mention, why do we want to privatize anything? And the answer is twofold. One, we want to privatize anything because of morality. Because if it's privatized, everything is done according to the non-aggression principle. People can buy or sell on a voluntary basis. Whereas if it's in the public sector, it has to be financed by taxes, and taxes are compulsory. They come to you with a gun and they say, pay up in April 15th in the U.S. and I think April 30th or May 2nd, the taxes are due to the CRA, the Canadian Revenue Association. If you don't pay, the first letter you get from them is a very kind, polite letter. Hey, did you guys forget, you got to pay, we need the money. A month later, you get a little escalation in the letter, and a month later, you get a very serious letter, and then after that, some guys in blue, or whatever the color the RCMP is wearing now, with or without a turban, they come with a gun and they say, come with us, and you're like in Mark Emery territory. You're in jail. That's coercive.